Wow.
Yeah. You're back. About that. You know what I'm saying? Once again, my friends, it's myself, Emil the Real, and of course I got the Aerosol Dream, Akeem Raheem, you know what I'm saying? Your favorite graffiti artist. We up in here. Once again, it's another episode of RnBisDead. This is season 2. We kicking it off. We're gonna kick it off kind of light because today we talking shop, but we got a lot of things going in the background. We're trying to prepare for a big social media takeover and things. So it's good. So we're gonna hit y'all over the head with some love and get to know our host with the most a little bit. We're gonna be checking in with Akeem. Real quick, brother, how you been?
Man, I've been good. You know, just hanging, trying to make it happen. I had a couple shows since last time we spoke. Juneteenth thing out here in San Jose, and I had a show in Oakland, Art and Soul Festival. And you know, we was out there slanging and banging. Shout out to everybody who bought pieces.
Yeah, I heard you got a line like around the corner or something crazy. My wife was like, "Have you seen his IG story or something?" She was like, "I don't know where he's at, but yeah, apparently
I had a little line for a short time. You know what I'm saying? Kind of lining up, catch a couple words and ask a few questions and stuff like that. And so, I mean, it was a good time. You know what I'm saying? I love when I can get some new exposure and we can touch a few new folks. You know what I mean? You know, and we're getting to a point now where, like, you know, it used to be like 100% of the people would be like, "Oh, this is dope. What's your name again? And how do you make this stuff?" And you know, those type of questions. But now we're getting to maybe 50-50, and you know, maybe 40-60, but you know, maybe 40% of the people slide through like, "Oh man, it's my boy Akeem, he's here," and you know, whatever. And you know, you run into a few people who got pieces already, and they're like, "Oh, you know that one? Yeah, I got that one."
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And so, you know,
still on my wall. That's what I found. That's great. And I mean, like you said, it's nothing like reaping the rewards of actually putting yourself out there. You know what I'm saying? Because this is definitely easy to shell up, be like, "No, I'll keep these for myself," and like, you know what I mean? As you got pieces all around, but you take them joints out with you, and that's a beautiful thing to get a response like that. No, that's good, D. What you been doing on the leisure tip? I know you work hard. What you been doing for leisure? And I know you work hard. So what you been doing for leisure, Keem? You got to do something, D.
Man, I've been chilling, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, I'm a boring kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? Like the fun thing for me is, you know, running around getting stuff done. You know what I mean? Like it takes a lot of like behind the scenes work. You know what I mean? In terms of like getting you know, canvases and paints and stuff for life, you know what I mean? Groceries, whatever.
Yeah.
And
all the stuff we don't see.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I've been chilling in my zone. I've been recovering, you know, because I know that, you know, I mean, I'm kind of hermit style, so like so like I get out, have a few shows, and I got kind of recoup, you know what I mean? But you know, I mean, like, I don't think I've really been out and about, you know what I'm saying, in the streets or none of that. But you know, I do gotta get out for some leisure time or whatever. I did see that movie Dope. Shout out to Jordan Peele.
I ain't seen it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm interested to know how you felt.
You know what? And without spoiling it, I will say it had like an artistic vision to it that I appreciated, but it felt kind of incomplete. It felt like you know how, and we'll say Jordan Peele has become kind of synonymous with mysterious, you know what I mean, and cryptic. And so I think a lot of these fans, these hardcore fans, and a lot of people who are film snobs have been on some like, it's awesome, and if you have questions, you're kind of basic, you don't get it. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, okay. I mean, for me, personally, I kind of felt like there was some stuff that might have been left on the cutting room floor that would have made the story make more sense. But it just kind of felt jumpy, like a dream. You know how like dreams be like, yo, I had a crazy dream. I was, on a horse, and then like the horse started flying, but it was like low. And so we was like hovering. But you know what I mean? And I kind of was whipping the horse, but the horse wouldn't go higher like a plane. It would just kind of hover. I mean, it was weird. And then we kind of got to this place that was the desert, but it was like a city. Or you know what I mean? Like it'd be like it's like it kind of felt it kind of felt like a lucid dream that some of the pieces were like, huh? Okay, so how did that happen? How did said thing happen? The thing that's happening right now, how did it how did it become so? How do we get here? And but I was entertained, and I was definitely it's a suspense type of thing, and so I was kept on the edge of my seat, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I give it a 8 out of 10. I don't think it's a masterpiece. Like Get Out. But Get Out that's his Achilles heel. He came too gangster he came too hard. He's chasing that perfect execution.
Well, for us, that bar is always gonna be like, yo, you did some shit right here.
It's like, whoa. That's his Illmatic. So,
and it's funny you say that, because I'll jump on that to where, wow, to your point of how you said it, not saying things are incomplete, like how you said, but it also felt like Get Out was the most like complete vision or metaphor that he was trying to make. Because even with Us, fucking dope, that's probably my favorite. Still, I felt left kind of like how you were saying, where I was like, like I still got a couple questions. Like, dope. I see what you put there, but I don't quite know how we got here.
And that wrap up was kind of like, oh, okay. Like toward the end, like, oh, that makes sense now because this. Oh, okay, but you got to remember what happened hella early on. To like, you know what I mean?
Like I almost had to be like, am I sold? Like,
I feel
okay. Like you said, like I see the vision, what you're doing, but I don't know.
And you know what? It's funny that you say that because it's kind of obvious that the Get Out was more of his life's work. He had so much time to get that thing perfect. And it's like your first album. It's like it's the culmination of 10 years of work or something like that. And your follow-up is the culmination of 3 or 4 years of work that you know what I mean, you was trying to get your next thing going and keep the hype popping. And so it feels, you can feel it. And so, I mean, there's only a few people, music-wise, movie-wise, any of that, that can come with some consistency for like several projects. Like, damn, like, And in terms of longevity, if you really want to keep it funky, if you're an artist out there thinking of anything creative, try to maybe think about coming kind of mid.
I like that.
Think about coming kind of mid so that you can improve. Like College Dropout was not late registration. Late registration was like, wow, this is like a movie. I can't believe this like sonic level of perfection. And I think Graduation was very similar, but late registration was like, it was a knockout punch compared to College Dropout, which felt rough compared to. Anyway, I feel like, I don't know if that was a tactic by Ye or not. But it unfolded that way. and it's a play that now we can talk about and say maybe we should play it that way. Maybe we can come like pretty good on whatever level, and then kill them with your follow up, just so that your name rings bells harder. You know what I mean? Than coming with your Illmatic first. You know what I mean? Like,
you know what I mean? It's like the build-up, you know what I mean? The rollout plan. Where it's like, look, you could hit them with your one hot product now, or you could save that joint, hit them with the mid that has less features. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, so you save that upgrade for later. You like, this joint got 3 more features though, but that's coming after I hit you with the
And that's not, and it's not necessarily the right answer. It's a suggestion because it comes with some risk, right? If you're saving, it's like fame specifically in clout, you know what I mean, for recognition for your projects is different than the quality of your projects, right? So when it's your moment, or when it's your time to shine, it's when it's your get out moment. It's hard not to hit the gas. You know what I mean? Because honestly, who knows if you'll have that moment in the sun twice? Who knows if people will be checking for your new, latest, best project? King's Disease is a good album, but let's keep it real. Nas is at the end of his slope in terms of fame, and so he's respected, but he's a senior, he's an elder in this hip hop thing. And if King's Disease had come out during the Illmatic or Stillmatic days, or during the It Was Written days, It Was Written was a good album to me, but I could see how people wanted more of the New Yorkie boom bap, and they didn't allow Nas to grow, but it did feel a little bit, it felt a little bit in tune with what was hot at the time. It felt like a little too in tune with, instead of his own thing. And he said it himself that he got a new shoes, tried them, wore them, wasn't his perfect fit, so he couldn't sport them. I get it, cool. You know what I mean? He admitted to that. And so I think we agree that the mafioso Don Nas was off of it was fantastic music, and some of that It Was Written out, it could have been on only built for Cuban links. Like it sonically it matched with that kind of type of thing, or the War Report. CNN. I mean, like some of that QB, Mob Deep, stuff kind of came through, but Nas was too big to be doing that. And he hadn't made his fame off of that Don status. So we didn't accept him like that yet. He needed to be more creative with that second album. Anyway, but timing matters, right? So if you're saving the gas for late in your career, then you might be playing yourself. But if you're saving the gas for that immediate follow-up, then you might really be on the money.
Like you said, even if it's, thankfully Nas had the luxury of longevity. You know what I mean? To your point where he could benefit from, because to your point, I felt like that was the total, I don't think it was strategy, but like it felt like the total mid-play. Like, look, I'm hot. Hit Boy, you hot. We're just gonna put some shit together. We're gonna build as we go though. Then we'll get the shit for later. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm with you, that first King Disease was cool. But it wasn't hitting like, you were like, okay, I feel y'all trying to vibe, but y'all ain't quite hit y'all chemistry yet. But to your point, when King's Disease 2 hit, I was like, oh my God. They were five people. You know what I'm saying? Like they was flowing together. That shit was perfect. We were like, oh yeah, this is the hot right here. Because to your point, had it gone the other way, I feel like in theory, they could say keep going at it the way they did. But to your point, it feels like now you got to really chase that next big project, that next big, like, oh, fuck, okay, I just did that. Now I got to do something. new or reinvent or come with something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because to your point, once you hit it big like that, you may not have the patience to do another Hit Boy album. It might be like, oh shit, window pass. Now I gotta find say jump back with Pharrell or something. You know what I mean? Like it may not have played out that way. They'd be like, damn, you missed the whole situation to rehash that. Yeah.
I mean, typical artist mind. You know, some of these people are more business men than rappers. So they're like, oh, we'll just keep giving them the same thing that they like. A person like Young Jeezy gives you the currency is the number one in terms of his sound, his lane, whatever. And some people say it's boring. It feels like the same thing over and over. And some people say, I'm glad he's doing this because no one else is. And at least if I can count on anybody, I can count on Currency. Yeah. If I want to chill and vibe, if I want to ride to the sunset, you know what I mean? Currency is that dude.
I know what I'm getting every time.
I'm a laid back rap. And clever bars that are but I mean
no experiment.
And some people say he sounds like he's about to fall asleep. I understand. He's so nonchalant, it's almost a fault. Yeah. But throwing away those heavy bars in a nonchalant way it's a style. It's a style that he came up with.
Sadly, we know the camp he was groomed in.
Yeah.
Cash Money, Young Money.
Yeah.
It didn't, quite work out, but he was around some very wasteful bar workers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just bar work, wasteful. You're like, really? It's a lot of skills here. And that was when, because you definitely I know you're definitely more versed at this, but that was definitely pre No Ceilings Wayne. But I'm saying like we were kind of getting to that era. We were like, oh, they bust him. Y'all really started to spin on these. I want to say definitely after Carter, but I want to say it was pre.
It was Dedication 2 Wayne.
Yeah.
It was Dedication 2 was crazy. And it was literally Duffel Bag Boy Wayne. Duffel Bag Boy Wayne was Hustler Wayne. That was
Hustler music.
Yeah, that was
talking about that shit, listening to that shit the other day. Yeah.
That Wayne was way more in line with like a Jeezy, Gucci, and
you gave 2 Chainz his wave, if you ask me, that
and,
way.
Yeah, and 2 Chainz capitalized off of that. Yeah. And he was able to make a career being even more zany than like some expressionless hood dude like a Jeezy or something. But he, and Gucci Mane is zany and funny. But you take him so seriously that it's almost like an artistic person. When they make a joke, it's like, are you for real? Did you know you hit that joke like that? Yeah. And it's funny. Yeah. But Gucci Mane is not like, he's not like a person who, because he's funny, you don't take him seriously as a street person, like a ludicrous. Yeah. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's the point. Yeah. The point is, Duffel Bag Wayne is a different character than No Ceilings Wayne. No Ceilings Wayne is tatted all over the face. He's got blonde dreads now, and he's a hipster skater, and he's much more of a drug addict. But Duffel Bag Wayne is to be kind of taken seriously almost. In hustler music specifically, that song is something that you can kind of get you through some tough times. Like, yeah, we're gonna ride to it, y'all, and ride to it, y'all. You know what I mean? And he's taking these chances out here and whatever. And the song had a lot of direction. Yeah. No Ceilings wasn't like, it was all bar work. It wasn't, none of those songs were like, man, this song got me through some tough times. Yeah. They were all just fun. Like, let me show you how I murk beats. Yeah. And I love No Ceilings Wayne, but I do think that Duffel Bag Wayne is a different character that had more longevity. We didn't know how Wayne was going to end up. We didn't know his career would get cut short like that. So I thought he had plenty of time. But No Ceilings Wayne is kind of the last version of Wayne that we got. You know what I mean? And the only reversion that we got that peaked out was that song with Currency. It was
I always remember that one where the beat was just snapping, and I know they was talking shit at thing. He said you like it. He said he good with the style and the raps. You like that shit? You need to come fuck with me too, Currency. I was like,
it was a song. It came on my shuffle too the other day, and
shout out iPod Shuffle for those that don't. If you're from that area, shut you out.
You know what? It was anyway, I'm gonna check it out real quick.
Robert, you make a good point. No, I'll carry that to
Hey, Albert.
Oh, that was a track, or it was on that soundtrack?
No, it was
Oh, okay.
it was Carlton Heights
Okay.
with the Alchemists. And I'm not even sure if you've ever heard this song.
I know that project.
It was just the simple fact that it was way more hip hop and way more less leaned out Wayne on some sack shit.
Yeah. How long ago do you think this dropped? Was this after the jail?
2016. What you hear this on that beat?
Oh yeah. That's what I can appreciate about
I'm like, I like this revision. Yeah. Anyway, that Fat Albert was a refreshing, still got it feature from Wayne. But I mean, if he could ever get his situation right, he could still drop a classic.
Yeah. This is never been the hugest Wayne fan. Respect, see it, talent, all of it.
Yeah.
But like I said, just going through the phases, if anything, like we kind of grew with it. You know what I mean? Whether it's when the block is hot, so of course before that, but when he really first got to drop, like we got to grow with it.
Yeah.
But man, I'll say finally, like in those ceilings, Wayne was starting to really snap. He was snapping, but man, right now, Wayne, feature Wayne right now, I can't front. The boy is snapping.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of goes to your point where you're almost like, it's too little too late. Not in that sense, but to where it almost has this like, so what is next? Especially after I just feel like that shit with the Carter 5 or whatever really threw a weird wrench in his momentum. Yeah. Of course he's cemented to where, like we were saying, I forgot what artist we mentioned earlier, where we're like, well, he could take that chance. Nas, you know what I mean? But with Wayne, it feels like it kind of threw some shit off where you're like, ooh, you still Wayne, you still cemented, but I'm not checking for you the same. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little different. And not just because you're older, you're still nice, but
because of momentum. And he knew that because if you remember the actual Sorry for the Wait mixtape, it's like the whole mixtape is Sorry for the Wait on his album. And he still was trying to feed the streets and give you something new to listen to. Because rap fans, music fans in general, the fans of consumers of any media at this point are kind of fickle, and we get over things kind of quickly. And back in the previous decades, in the 80s and 90s, people were taking 4 or 5 years between projects, touring with the first album for hella long, and you'd be waiting for that new blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, and there's people who can. There's only a few people who can wait like that, like a Beyonce. Dropped her album, and her album, I don't know, it's been 6 years or something like that since she dropped a project, and that's 90s type style. You know what I mean? Nowadays you gotta kill them every summer or whatever, and you gotta have some kind of momentum, some kind of people still talking about you. Otherwise, they're talking about you like a has-been. So artists don't get enough time to back to the Get Out argument. People don't get enough time to develop the next project. So everything that your favorite artist is dropping is either mid or it feels the same as the last project, or it feels worse. Because they're making the project under some kind of pressure. You know what I mean? And it's the rare exception that keeps growing. It's the rare exception artists that keep that. You know what I mean? You can name them on one hand just about who was like, damn. But when they came with this, you know, it was like, honestly, you know what? And even though he's a singles driven artist and I'm not a big fan, I respect the hell out of Fat Joe. Fat Joe has able to be, not only has he been able to reinvent himself several times, but he's been able to link up with the right people. And he's never been a great rapper, but he knows how to have presence on a song, rap, and let the other people do their work. The Scott Storch or whoever made the lean bag, and you know he knows how to depend on the hook. He knows how to depend on his feature, whoever he's doing the song with.
It's like if Rick Ross just made hits, but like Rick Ross with less bars.
Yeah, Rick Ross had less depth and less really quality album cuts. Because a lot of my favorite Rick Ross songs are actually, his info beats is outrageous.
Or it was just focused on, like you said, just versus real musical chorus, something that you feel like this is a real production, arrangement.
Yes, and he took that page, seemingly like from Late Registration Kanye. He was on Devil Without a Blue Dress, and he was probably in the studio like. So wait. So there's a whole musical bridge that's 2 minutes before my verse. Ding! Genius. Did you peep how they came in with the guitar like and then all of a sudden you think the song is over, and here comes Ross like, oh, looking at my bitch, I bet she get your ass a ball. Wow. And it was like the song was the same beat, but it felt like deconstructed in a weird way where it's one of those album cuts that not only was a single, but it had to have an album version because the song was too long to play on the radio. It was like one of those disco songs that was 8 minutes long. You know what I mean? Like he was breaking the rules. Like you know, songs don't have to be all rap. It could be a long instrumental in the middle just to make you feel a certain kind of way or whatever. But I tell you what, Ross clearly had a ear for beats. Even Every Day I'm Hustling is cinematic. It has like it's like when that Every Day I'm Hustling comes on and it's not the beat yet, it's that you're like, damn, I am the man, huh? Let me fix my coat. You know what I mean? And he had a hell of a presence of like a real boss. It wasn't just a word that he was using, like Slim Thug was. Slim Thug was the boss and all of that, and he argued that Rick Ross stole his "I'm the boss" thing. You know what I mean? And I mean,
Slim Thug never sent it home. It was more like you said.
Yeah, he was a feature rapper.
Not like I have a gimmick. He was just saying, "I'm the boss."
Yeah.
Yeah,
and rappers are always calling themselves the king of this or the prince of that, or you know what I mean, I'm the boss, I'm the best, or whatever. And
in this case, Ross definitely took another page. He took that page out of that Reasonable Doubt Jay-Z book as far as like, oh, I'm the boss. I'm gonna make it a real whole push. You know what I mean? Like a whole promo thing about all this shit.
Yeah, the Mafia Don, Stilo,
Triple C's.
It was I'm telling you. Not only did he have that lane, but he had that Gucci Man lane. The Teflon Don, MC Hammer specifically, and Bill Gates. When Bill Gates comes on, it sounds like Beats by the Pound. It sounds like straight up, like No Limit. refreshed, and Ross will just destroy the beat.
Yeah.
He was riding the beat, outrageous, delivery crazy, conviction crazy, everything, even no matter what he did to put food on his table before he was a rapper, you actually kind of believe the stuff he's saying.
Yeah.
But you also respect his like cinematic mind. He's kind of like a Jordan Peele. He's got a clear direction behind his projects, and he has a visual component. Yeah. And so yeah. I mean, shout out to Rick Ross.
Yeah. Shout out to Boss No Hate.
And he's one of the few people that we also could say grew with us.
Yeah.
And gave us higher quality projects than his first one.
He got solid and only grew from there to your point where you're like, not making it about that, brothers don't gotta be prepared to be. But like you said, he also came in on like that, not in, but that kind of middle to tail end of that Jeezy wave.
Yeah.
Where it was perfect, it fit, boss, okay, you talking the same kind of shit. But then he was like, oh shit, Fat Boy snapping. To where like I said, Jeezy was cool, but I feel like we all know this thing. Jeezy really had to start upping up the bar work. You know, it really was what it was, but you started seeing more beat riding.
We like Jeezy on the Khaled projects. We like Jeezy on Slow Down with Fat Joe. We like Jeezy trying to stay with the time. Yeah. We like Jeezy trying to not be a one-dimensional character. We like that. Yeah, we like that. But the thing that Jeezy didn't have was that cinematic character that came with Ross, and he didn't have the zaniness that Gucci had or that 2 Chainz has. And I like a fun MC. I like an MC that I can smile along with the bars. You know what I mean? Rap about how my watch just caused an auto accident. You know what I mean? Like, shout out to Nicholas F.
And like in a dope way, like he definitely had his type of flair. But to your point, even as you look at some of these MCs we're listing, he was very like, I don't want to call him two-dimensional, but very flat. Almost kind of like Drake without the depth. Like, not to get out Jeezy, but like, it's one thing to have a monotone flow, but when you talking so much deep shit as far as Drake, you know what I mean? And not to get in that bag, you know what I mean? But that's where I definitely saw Jeezy too, where it's like, bro, you kind of, this Fat Boy again is murking right now. I get the conviction. Like, you hear all the layers in the character Ross built.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could almost hear the frustration of seeing Jeezy in the spotlight where he's like, that's supposed to be my spot. You know what I mean? Like, where you're like, ooh, you hear him coming for the shit. You're like, I'm Fat Boy.
And not even like it's the same spot.
Yeah.
Because as competitive as hip hop is, and urban culture specifically, people think that one artist knocks another person out of their square. And in terms of the spotlight, yes, the spotlight sometimes does shine one way, and that it'll somebody else shining can take the direction away from you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's not true. Yeah. But there are plenty of times where people can share the spotlight. Yeah. And I think, Gucci, Jeezy, Ross, even let's just say Wayne, all had a different lane on the same road.
Yeah.
And young Jeezy, his flatness and it came with a conviction because there was so much grit in what he was saying. Can I talk any slower? Like, it's just like, oh, okay, he's like, when he's when that grit and that kind of hoarseness came, it helped you believe that he was really getting them off, getting them off like pancakes. Go and eat your mama. It's just like, damn, okay. And he had and Fat Joe clearly reached out to him for that same conviction when he came in. His bitch tonight to murder things. You can call us all the murder team, all black from head to toe, we murder clean. It was like, oh, this is what he does. It's a different position. It's like it's like a person who's a running back is not a person who is a wide receiver, but they're on the same team. And you can. All I'm saying is, Jeezy, yeah, Jeezy was arguably flat compared to other MCs who had more vocal range and inflection in their voices. But Jeezy had a specific task.
Oh yeah,
and he was very good at it. And so I'll give you your point. He was flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I gotta give him some points just for being flat.
Yeah.
It's like
it added to it. But it was just like a summary of compared to, but no, that added to the whole, like you say, I'm up all night serving and things. Oh no. Jeezy was the guy. TM 101 all day.
I agree. And if you're talking one dimensional, let's also give a big shout out to one of my favorite people, OJ the Juice Man. OJ the Juice Man is very one dimensional in terms of the type of rap that he does, but I love that kind of rap. And
what we also, when I said it was why we get to like it too, because what I like is it's the what would I call it? For lack of a better word, the delineation of the South. The way they break it up, the way they allow each other lanes, the way they support to where, like you said, you get to enjoy their music for what it is. I feel like that's why we get to be so like, go Currency, it be the same rap, different ways, but the same way every time, whatever. But like, you get to have that. To your point, it's not competitive. It's not, oh shit, there's Jay-Z about to try and knock you off because you're in the fucking New York market. You're down the street. You know what I mean? Like, oh, fuck.
Shout out to Fabulous. Because Fabulous actually had to tread uphill the whole time. He was in Jay-Z's lane and still made a sub lane for himself. In terms of content, what he's rapping about, character, and Jay was honestly one of the first monotone, no emotion. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I can agree with that.
Like Fab is definitely in that. He's as close to in that lane as you can get.
Yeah. But it's the thing I would argue shit. He came out damn near with that Ja Rule lane. R&B shit. So where that's where I really feel like
he was the R&B thug way before. And shout out to longevity. Shout out to reinventing yourself, because the cruel summers or the cold summers or whatever, those mixtapes, and summertime shootouts or whatever, all of those mixtapes made Fabulous a different character. He was Loso now, and he wasn't the R&B thug on all those little low songs. He filled those shoes because Mace had left. And after that job was over, he said, "Hey guys, check it out." You know what I mean? I have more layers than that. And so it's really hard to do too. It's hard to go from that Mace spot, because Mace couldn't even do it. It's hard. Like Murder Mace happened before Shiny Suit Mace, and Shiny Suit Mace messed up the credibility of Murder Mace after that. So it's real difficult. Yeah, Fab is actually a one of one. Not many people can go from Shiny Suit to Gangster. You know what I mean? To Gully. And the only other people who did it outside of Fabulous was the Locks. Shout out to the Locks. They went from the Shiny Suit.
A lot of love. It's kind of funny that you compare those two. But you make it ill point be like, given the time Fab came up into, like, it was still that pretty coke flow, like say mafioso era, where it's like, okay, at this point you kind of be in the fuck you. One, you got melodic songs. You got really what am I looking for? She like
For the ladies,
beats
or-
of now type trendy beats. Like not so
Oh,
much Neptune's Nori, but that's like holla back. Woo would have to be. He was like, oh man, this
That
is
wasn't Neptune?
dance shit was coming back. Was that
I don't
Neptune?
know. That man,
But it was
that
something
song,
like that,
dang.
right? It's slack where you're like you get like beat heavy, you're like, okay, this is
Like
some-
just, he just said Brooklyn. Bounce. It's like, whoa, I don't know, but it definitely felt microwavy, poppy at the same time. But it's so, yeah.
In that climate, we're like, oh, okay, get it
Oh,
on box.
I'm not gonna give him any points for vision or something like that. Like
Yeah.
he saw something down the road that this song wouldn't be received as microwavey, like a Chingy's Right Third. Or it's like I never put on Chingy Right Third. I don't put on anything by Nelly. You know what I'm saying? But Holla Back Youngin', woo woo. For some weird reason, even Snap Your Fingers, do your step. You could do it all by yourself. That's a super. That song felt really like, okay, I know exactly what you're doing here.
Yeah.
There's no like,
There's a little pink.
yeah, you know them sitcoms where you're like, I know exactly how this joke is about to wrap up. It's like predictable. It's not funny because it doesn't take you anywhere. You know what I mean? Like it felt very pandery, like you said. And so, but some of those pandery songs end up somehow hitting a bone that, you know what I mean, becomes and Holla Back Youngin' was on the tail end of G-Dep's Special Delivery, which made it acceptable. Because that the Special Delivery and Let's Get It.
When the last time? It takes me kind of there. Last time you heard it like this.
In that particular song, I hate it. And still hate it. I still hate that
But
song.
it kind of feels almost pandering. You're like, I know what you're doing.
Oh,
This is
my
hot,
God.
but I know
I'm
what
a
you're doing.
huge Nori fan. I love Noriega. But when the last time you heard it like this?
The clip show.
Oh, that was there. That was the clips. I don't know. I was. My mind put you're in awe. Something. Yeah. So I'm right. And that was a different song. Yeah.
Indian style. She's big.
Yeah. And I can't. Nori is.
Shout to the guy. I never would have. If you asked me to, I have love for Nori.
Yeah.
But if you asked me to bet the house of where he would have ended up, I would have never.
No way.
Never did that.
No way.
Never.
No way. Because the game was so fickle. We saw Mace fall off from a very high height. And we were like, wow, it could happen to anybody. And these MCs are almost disposable. They're interchangeable. CNN had a project that was undervalued and not received with the same type of love that it should have received because of Wu-Tang and Mobb Deep. They were all in the same lane. And CNN's War Report is a classic. That album bangs front to back and there's no skippers on there. And they had the QB flow on live. It wasn't too hard to digest. It was conversational, but it had some gems in there. He wasn't Nori, neither one of them, Capone or Nori, were not really Farsi enough to be a prodigy. Because Prodigy is basically Nas. They're basically the same type of guy. Except for Nas is more of the storyteller and Prodigy is more of the action figure in the story. But they're the same vocals, everything, demeanor, and all of that. So Prodigy and Nas almost couldn't coexist, really.
Prodigy's like narrator, like you said,
Yeah.
a character,
Yes.
story. That's how
Yes.
I can see that.
And it's the same guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like when Belly came on, we was like Butch and Sundance.
Yeah.
Eat anything to get the dough. You know what I mean? That's exactly what he's doing. You know what I mean? And so they let Nas not narrate his own life on Belly, which was obvious. It was like the obvious choice. You know what I mean? And he was even narrating shit that was happening to Buns.
Yeah.
Because he was the Morgan Freeman of the situation. Bun, DMX, but he didn't have the So now we finna go. You know what I'm saying? Like the only time they let him talk was Jamaicans. Wow, real. This is how if I know him, he's gonna get, you know what I'm saying? He's gonna get money. And then that was it. It wasn't like that, like they couldn't. Yeah, shout out to Hype Williams. But I will say, the Capone and Noriega was a different lane of that same freeway, and they weren't exactly Mobb Deep, but they weren't exactly Nas's little brothers or whatever, kind of like Mobb Deep was. They weren't exactly Wu-Tang, but they were very Wu-Tang-like. And yeah, it felt very Mafia Don, Cuban Links-ish, and it felt cinematic.
Okay, but I think to your point, shout out the guy. That's why he still gets all respect, the legend, the god, Nori. What I think I liked about him was when he ultimately said, like, he really made it a point not to get any of them type of beats that a lot of them cats was on. Mafia sound and just like, he was like, nah, everything we gotta get, gotta sound different. It's QB flow, but it's got to be on something different because of the Wu-Tangs and the Nas's and so on, and everybody on some gritty beat. He's like, nah, we gotta change it up.
And there was enough of a difference, but that difference was so subtle because because if you ask me, most of those songs could have been on Criminology or Cuban Links. But those beats could have been on, I mean, especially the joint where it's raining the whole time. I can't remember what that song was called. I think it was like Parole Offenders or something. And they talking about like, it's the second time that nigga did that, son. This is them, and they plotting on dude like, we gonna get them, and we gonna, you know what I mean? And then boom, they drop the beat drops, and then all of a sudden Capone is basically Nas. We in the building in back. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. And Capone was very Nas-y. But he had his own thing, kinda.
And I think it was just that sound too, the way his voice sounded.
It had a little grit to it.
It had a different move. Okay.
And so, well, I mean, because that album it seemed like it blended in so well with the sonic landscape of New York at the time. It got almost skipped over in terms of like what the major fans was listening to. But everything that all the albums we just mentioned were in my rotation, and I couldn't take that one out. And matter of fact, it's one of my faves compared to the other albums because of its consistency. Like a Liquid Sword or something like that, very ingenious and inventive and all of that, but it didn't have the sonic consistency to make like one song doesn't feel like, okay, now I'm ready for this one. You know what I mean? It was like the MCs came to live out the name, and then all of a sudden it was like a whole different, the Cold World. And the Cold World was like, it didn't feel as hip hoppy. It felt like a dreary day, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever. Anyway, I'm saying we gotta get on the damn topic. What were we?
Definitely sounded like dominoes. No, I'm with you. I think I got so caught up in that too, to where I think I said fuck it. But I think all in all we went around. I think we really were stuck in our loop of just kind of mediocre shits and who went where and kind of excelled or, you know what I mean? Leveled up, ascended from where they were, and kind of who didn't and who kind of benefited. But that shit is on point because you know what? Then I got you. Let's jump back in because we all on check-in. So perfect, she. That's why I love working with you. You're so on point, B. I gotta ask it. Let's piss some motherfuckers off. Shout out to the deadheads. Let's piss some motherfuckers off real quick. I know we love to talk about it. I know we love to really just check the ranking and just analyze how much people praise this individual. And not that they don't deserve it, you know what I'm saying? But we're really like, okay, this might have came quick. It was needed. There was vacancy. You got it. Pause. How did you feel about that new King Kendrick joint? That new, How did you feel? How did you feel, B? How did you feel? You know what I mean? We talk Kendrick Lamar all the time. How did you feel?
I may be biased. Because I do feel as though, and I think you might have touched on that, I feel like Kendrick gets overvalued and he stepped into a void that needed filling. And because of the major record label industry games that get played, whether it's political, socio-political, and specifically money related. If you're a shrewd businessman, you have less likelihood of succeeding on a mainstream level in terms of fandom. People talk about Master P because he seems to be the blueprint of how to get independent money and to drop 20 albums in a year, you know what I mean, or whatever. And he was pen and pixel graphics. You know, the game picked that up from Swisher House to, you know, anyone after that, or even 8Ball and MJG was doing stuff like that, and UGK and everybody else. It went from tacky to kind of like dope. You know what I mean? And the people started getting creative and having, shout out to Big Bear, for having the bears imposed on his, you know what I mean? Like, and just crazy stuff that was, anyway, outside of the visuals, that Master P was able to strike while the iron was hot. He was able to strike while the South had, you know, got its spotlight, and he happened to make that spotlight happen because he was really rapping like the Bay, because he was in Richmond and he was messing with all the Bay rappers and all of that, and Master P didn't really have his own New Orleans sound yet. And he realized that he had to kind of forge that lane. So Bout It came out. And we know Master P was completely sharking Scarface's flow. If you know what I mean, if you take his vocal tones and put them down, I represent where the killers at. We got our own set. It's like, okay, you know, I never seen a man cry till I seen a man die. And he was doing that whole shit all the time. The whole thing was Scarface. Like, and Master P was a wave rider in terms of he knew what he liked and he knew what to copy or whatever. But he wasn't really an original artist. He was a businessman. And the only original artist in his camp was Mystical. But he took his team with him. Everybody got money, and they closed the doors on him in a weird way. But he was one of those people kind of like snuck past the elevator before it closed, and he was able to get in, put his money, his bazillions of dollars that he made into film and other ventures or whatever. But Master P, people couldn't really follow right behind him because the majors didn't want to play ball with niggas like that. You know what I mean? And the whole reason I'm building this up is because if you're a shrewd businessman, you don't get the same shine at Master. You can't do the Master P because Master P already used that trick on them and won. So the only reason I bring all of that up is because the void, the vacuum of King of the West Coast / LA was only given to Kendrick / TDE because of their affiliation with Dr. Dre, who knows how to play ball and has power in the industry. And the void that was being filled, it was actually being filled by Nipsey Hussle. And Nipsey Hussle, rest in peace, was a Master P-like businessman. And because of that, some people even argue that he was killed because of that. But outside of the conspiracy theories and all of that, I would say he met his untimely demise because he was still around and accessible, and maybe too philanthropic. But that void, that authenticity, that life experience, that range, the all of that included with delivery, wordplay, charisma. Nipsey Hussle had all of those things, and I think that Kendrick gets mentioned because he's the safer choice who got more shine. And so the void, I don't know, it kind of just doesn't. Kendrick doesn't have. He's a skilled lyricist. He's a backpacky kind of MC. He's refreshing because he's a throwback to a time where lyrics mattered more. And he gives me Lupe vibes. He gives me Elzai vibes. He gives me some of those prolific MCs. Even if you really want to go there, cannabis vibes. These are all prolific MCs. People like Brasscast, people like Chino XL, people like and the exception to this group is Big Pun, who had classic albums. But everyone else I named doesn't have a classic album. They have great freestyles that impressed you on the Wake Up Show or Hot 97. These people are skilled lyricists that had they got that lyrical prowess, and they seem to be unstoppable on terms of double and triple entendres and almost nerd rap, almost like, okay, you got to be kind of smart to get these bars, and if you're not, they'll go right over your head. And Lupe is the king of that, and so you have this West Coast Lupe basically, and let's be real. I mean, I can't even really say that without mentioning that Lupe is better than Kendrick. Lyrically?
No, I'm a Lupe fan. It's funny you taking this language. I know we discussed this. Yeah.
And Lupe didn't get the shine because Lupe isn't a marketable star.
Yeah.
Lupe doesn't have star quality. He's not like an in the limelight kind of guy. He's kind of a real artist. He's a hermit, kind of eccentric kind of guy, and for the same kind of reason Elzai gets that same kind of treatment. He's real barsy, but he's really kind of a nerd. Yeah. And you gotta be to be that barsy. And you gotta be a student of the game. You gotta be able to top what these classics have from the 90s and whoever has done. You gotta be able to be unpredictable, where I never know what Lupe's gonna say. Yeah. And I have all I'm saying is you have this West Coast Lupe-like character, and people are jumping on it like it's the best thing ever. When Lupe, Elzai, Sheik Luch, Young Buck, Lloyd Banks, all of these MCs, all these MCs who had skills, Absol, but don't have that star quality. They don't have a commanding presence that puts them in the spotlight and makes them kind of this full package. You don't get to be the king of LA and be like a hermit that doesn't feed the streets, if you will, and drop albums regularly. It's like, I don't know. It kind of feels like Kendrick Lamar is a good MC who drops decent songs. And I just don't know, I can't think of another MC who gets as overhyped as Kendrick does.
When he came out, just as far as you remember the Lupe hype where it was like, oh shit.
Hip Hop is back.
The skateboard album, I forgot, not Superstar, or not Lazy. What was the album? The first one, ultimately the one that was just getting, and two, I think it didn't help him that it was just getting leaked like fucking crazy. Yeah. To which I think really
the Kick Push album or whatever. I don't know. I think that's just the lead single. I don't know.
Yeah. Where to your point, it felt like he had that like, oh shit, status to where it almost got so high.
That's
It
the Jay
propels you.
Electronica effect.
Thank you.
The
It
Jay
propels you into
Electronica effect.
culting, where you're like, okay, well, now you're like culting. You're like a sneaker. I'm like a sneakerhead now. Like, oh, this is a Nike SB artist. Where you're like, oh, and they got super nerdy. You're like, oh.
But then there became this weird, like, then there became this weird retail lane for that. Nike launched ISPA, and the ISPA brand is specifically like space hippies and all the recycled shoes, and like Nike SB expanded. Adidas got a different like Y3 line, and it became like there was like a specific market for this this hipster nerd skateboard backpack. Yeah, it was all centered around the BBC culture to make this high-end item that cost hella money. Yeah, to like that you could market to this typically non-materialistic crowd. These people are backpackers who wear, you know, jean jackets and with the patches ironed on. And, you know what I mean? Like these, a lot of these cats are you know, they'll wear an African medallion instead of a gold chain, or they'll wear a kufi. You know what I mean? Like, but now you got these cats, same dudes, wearing $300 sneakers. You know what I mean? And then I gotta mention that. And then almost without fail, not without fail, and almost without a hiccup, people who were not Black cornered the sneaker market, and it became something that Black people couldn't get rich off of. It's something that's our culture, definitely, but sneakerhead became a very universal thing that didn't have anything to do with hip hop. And that happened in a couple of years. It was like we went from Radio Raheem dying over his sneakers to, oh, this is not necessarily a Black thing. And matter of fact, we're gonna price y'all niggas out. Yeah. And it kind of can't be a Black thing. You know. Anyway, not the.
You know what? Who's a great chronicle of that, or not? Say chronicler, not journalist. That's not the word I'm looking for. But anybody documentarian of that, Wu-Tang, great one. You remember the shit that was coming, let alone when they was doing all the Tommy Hilfiger fashion shows.
Oh yeah.
But when he came out with the sneaker joint, Diadora, No, I Love You, where he was just busting on all the sneaker brands. I can't remember if that was on Cuban Links or which one it was.
I think that was after that.
Yeah, but he was getting off on all the sneaker brands. But it just interesting to your point. It seems like then as they started getting to the height, which you know some more there, but it just seems like it got to exactly what you're talking about. Where it's like, okay, we don't want you in our shoe. You know what I'm saying?
And we also gotta mention the power of the urban dollar. It might it's predominantly a Black dollar, but there's other folks in the urban space, you know, people of color and even white folks who are just really fans of the music like that. But the urban dollar is pretty damn strong, you know, and we can see what happened to Tommy Hilfiger. And there's also an article about how hip hop saved Timberland. Timberland was a company that was marketed specifically to longshoremen and construction workers and people who were blue collar. And when they were indestructible almost. And when you bought a pair of Timberlands, you really didn't need to buy another. And Timberland had actual market graphs or whatever that show that when they did a commercial with LL Cool J, their brand went up and Tim's went back in hip hop, you know, where Tim's were the thing because it's so New York centric. And the fresh wheat Tim's are just as delicate as a pair of all white shoes. They stain easily, they scuff easily, and you need a new pair every year. And Timberland literally became a bazillion-dollar company because of hip hop. And I'll go ahead and say another company that did the same thing and doesn't necessarily admit it. Nike. Here's the sneak joint that I think this is my theory. I don't think that I went to the mall and I saw a Clark's store. And in the Clark's store, they have all kinds of shoes. They've expanded to women's, and you know, they've got all these different kinds of shoes. But they specifically have Wallabies. And I remember when Wu-Tang made the Wallabies real hot. It was Ghost and Ray made the Wallows, and actually shout out to Camp Low, helped to make that Wallows very special. And they were actually kind of a cheap, affordable way to style, just like Vans would eventually become. And so we got, I remember me and the homies couldn't find Wallows like that. And we had to get the GBX joints. And you know what I mean? The Wallows that weren't Clark's name. And it kind of almost didn't matter. We was just styling in our different color Wallows and whatever. And a lot of those brands made colorways that Clark's didn't. But I don't think Clark's would be a viable company right now without that Wu-Tang push. I don't think that, you know, I mean, Ghostface specifically was the Wally champ. And I was around.
I heard this joint would kill him this summer, baby. I'm like, ooh, people are gonna do this joint right here. Said, so I'm gonna die this side, right? No, he's busted. I'm gonna die to that happened me every time I heard that.
And it came out to happen.
Yeah, yep.
But the Wally champ, Ghostface, specifically made Clark Wallabies a viable, more marketable product than it would have been. I know we all remember Tom's. Tom's came and went. And I bought a pair of Tom's just because they give a pair to a kid in Africa when you buy a pair. Hey, yeah, and what we on now? Crocs, they're gonna come and go. There's a lot of things that are you remember, like remember Creative Rex? Yeah. I mean, we was on Creative Rex. Remember that? And for Clark's to be such a sustainable company, you know what I mean, that's in high-end store or high-end malls and stuff like that, they kind of snubbed, you know what I mean, they didn't go with the urban push. They didn't put Ghostface in one of their commercials or whatever. Yeah. And shout out to Gucci for making Gucci Mane a brand ambassador, but and it's because they have such a high-end fluff point that they can acknowledge Gucci Mane without ruining their upscale market. But Clark's didn't have that leisure. We didn't already respect it. Yeah. And so they took that Ghostface push, and the other company that did the same exact thing, Cristal. Yeah. Jay made Cristal hot, and Jay knew it, and he wanted market share in Cristal. And that's when he had to start popping Armandale or whatever, and he had his own Douce or whatever. What was it? He had to have his own liquor because he knew he was making them rich. Oh yeah, the Ace. Yeah, the Ace was when he had to make his own liquors or whatever because he realized that these luxury brands that he had been championing, he was making them money because he was cooler than they were. And I mean, I hate to see it, man. I mean, and like shout out to the average Joe out there. You need to realize that whatever you're wearing on your shirt, you're making that brand cool, especially if you're, you know what I mean, a cool person already who has style and swag or whatever. So anyway, he realized that he had a platform, and Cristal became a much higher profile brand and more of a household name in Champagne, and Clico did too, because Moet, all because of hip hop, but they kind of distanced themselves from it and said, okay, yeah, you know, we're the hotty toddy crowd, and that's why they rap about us, because we're aspirational. Not to say it, instead of appreciating the push. And a lot of brands do that, right? We make everybody rich. It's Versace. You know what I mean? But from a cultural standpoint, we know that people of color get hated on in business, and so we don't get to come out with our own stuff. You know, we don't get the Earl Stevens winery and
Dan.
Yeah, Dapper Dan. Yeah. I mean, and shout out to the real fashion icon. That's my favorite. Is Carl Kanai.
Okay.
Carl Kanai he is Ralph Lauren in terms of like his styling, his classics, the stuff that's still currently. I follow Carl Kanai on I follow Carl Kanai on Instagram, and he's still coming with heat. I got a Carl Kanai shirt that's not that old, and it's just the one that says Kanai in cursive.
Yeah.
And it's just like he made a brand that was so timeless and classy. He clearly had inspiration from Ralph Lauren and from Calvin Klein. Yeah. And he was able to make that and bridge back to our get out point and our late registration point and all of those points. He was able to keep it mid forever. He wasn't hitting you over the head with cross colors, red sleeve and a green sleeve and something that he had those kind of joints. He had the half army half hunter green, half burgundy joint with the Carl Kanai stitch in the middle, half zip joint. I remember that, and it was dark blue on the bottom. But guess what that colorway is? Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger. It's American classic. You know what I mean? And he didn't go too far on the Hotep red, black, and green. He didn't go too far on all his colorways. You could get some loud Carl Kanai stuff, but most of his stuff was subtle, and it had staying power. It had sustainability. And Carl Kanai is legitimately being snubbed out of high fashion, along with the guys who just saw FUBU. You know what I mean? Like they saw that urban dollar was very powerful, and they didn't want us making our own clothes and making money off our own music and owning our own masters like Master P. They didn't want us doing all of that. We'd be self-sufficient. If Black people were rich off of just our culture, we'd be rich. If Black people were rich, if Black people owned our sports arena, if we owned our NFLs and NBAs that we dominate, we'd be set. We wouldn't need no reparations or be talking about any kind of handout.
NBA's throwing shade to Ice Cube now.
Yeah, it's about that league. Yeah, he gotta leave.
And there's already performed for the camera, which is what I like about him. Of course, your point where how he said it, and that's what we got to think of the show. He kept it mid. He didn't come out getting loud and but they asked him a question. He kept it true. And he did it the right way. He said, "We know who the NBA is. We know what they're doing, and they're saying the right things on camera. But the support behind closed doors isn't what it should be." To the point he didn't get high, didn't get low, kept right in the middle. Yeah. Like y'all not fucking with me.
And let them make him say something out of character. No, it was that's a professional response.
But that's the battle, right? And it's like, I'm using some of your what's the word for it? Some of your not wasted goods, but the things you aren't using, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm using your same parts. Viable assets. I'm using some of your assets you weren't using, but it's a problem. He wasn't even using them, man.
You know what? And it's not even like that's the trigger for me. That's the catch that we always assume, and I hate the assumptions because a lot of the things that we assume, they were just talking about the James Webb Telescope, right? Mm-hmm. And they were talking about there were like one star that had like between 3 and 7 habitable planets around it, and they were saying that's crazy. We could find new worlds and where there's life, or where there's used to be life, or where there's not life yet. And I'm just like, that's funny how we think as humans. We think very imperialistically, like that new planet is up for grabs. Like niggas don't live there. And and that's one of the things that makes us ultimately afraid of aliens, because once they get here, if they can ever get here, because it's so far away and impossible to traverse, once they get here, we're up for grabs. You know what I mean? Like your whole life is up for question now. Are the aliens friendly? Yeah. Or do they want to kill us all, or are we cool? Yeah. Because you know what I mean? Like anyway.
The holiday family joint. You was the man as the big brother until your big cousin got there. Oh fuck. Yeah, because now you either get your ass whooped, you get caught. Oh shit.
In a small pot, right? So what I'm trying to say is the assumption that I gotta correct is that Ice Cube.
Mhm.
I'm using your unused goods as if we are your goods. We are not your goods. It's like being a farmer and having a farm next to you that you don't own. I'm not picking some of your apples. I'm picking my own apples. I'm growing apples. In God's green earth, we live in a paradise, you know. And if you're in outer space, you realize how unique this planet is. It's crazy to have and ice freezes at a very low temperature. I mean, a very easy temperature. And ice evaporates at a very easy temperature. It's a real Goldilocks zone to have liquid water. You know what I mean? And we live in a paradise, and it's so anti-human to think that there's not enough air for everyone, or not enough water for everyone, or there's not enough resources in any particular way for everyone. And there are, but we got just 1%, and we defer to them on some, hey, bro, I'm just trying to use some of your apples. Bro, these are not his apples, man. He wishes everything was his, yes, but the thing is that most things are free. We think of all of this materialistic stuff and think, oh, everything costs money. And I mean, it does. It costs money to survive. But
to that entitlement, about to charge.
Yeah.
For real. Instead of like saying, motherfucker, you don't pay him shit.
You go to the club and pay money for a plant that grows. I do it. I go to the club and I buy a plant that grows. I could grow it. The same way I go buy some bananas or some apples. And I understand there's a market there, and a farmer can grow apples and he can sell apples, and I buy the apples. If I only had the time, patience, energy, the land or whatever to grow my own stuff, I wouldn't need said person, right? But we're not talking about land here. We're talking about a culture that we actually created. So the owners of this culture are actually thieves. They're not the rightful owners. Sony shouldn't own all of the music. You know, Priority, Columbia, or whoever, they shouldn't own all of the classics that we just talked about. The niggas we talked about should own those songs. And you get a person like Berry Gordy, or a person like P. Diddy, or a person like Dr. Dre, and these people come around maybe like once in a lifetime, but there should really be 100 Berry Gordys. There should be 1,000 Diddy's. There should be 1,000 Master P's. And it's because we should really just own the talent that we have deep inside of our soul or whatever. It's not even something that Black culture is free. We actually make it up. And it becomes a product later. But we don't own the vehicle that sells that product. We don't own the store that sells that product. And so, yeah, there's a concerted effort to make sure we don't get a store so that we can sell our own culture. You know what I mean? To sustain our, yeah. I mean, if the Indians got Indian gaming, you know what I mean, and it's legal to go to Chancey Gold in a state where gambling is illegal. Why? It's because they have sovereignty over their culture, that they were gamblers before you got here. All we need is a little sovereignty over the raps we made up. Tommy Mottola shouldn't be able to tell you what good rap is or bad rap. And he may invest in the company that we own, and that would be fine for Tommy Mottola to benefit off of hip hop. That would be fine. But that's not enough for a person like that. He wants to own hip hop and let you participate at his discretion. And I think that's a moral problem. that we're letting happen. And so we're not using the NBA's unused talent. We're using our own talent that we grow. We're using our own bodies to dunk on people in the big three. We're using our own hops. We're using our own crossover, Allen Iverson, whatever the hell. Allen Iverson was able to do that before he was famous. And Allen Iverson should be able to have some place. A person like Allen Iverson, a person like Vince Carter, a person who had that explosive athletic talent should have a place in a place where the NBA, they might not be able to follow all the rules, but they should have a place to display that talent still. And so I'm not here to get political or nothing like that. Hey, I love everybody, and I'm not. I think what's fair is fair, and so.
Government discharges the soldier. They don't get mad at him when he comes back as a mercenary and says, "Look, I need to do the job." They say, "Oh shit, you know what I mean?" Like they work with it.
Yeah, you got the skill set.
They don't say,
you know what I mean?
"No, we gave you those skills. We're gonna fucking take." No.
Yeah. I mean, and everything should be a fair trade.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you think about how I'm an '80s baby, and I remember when infomercials would come on TV to help send 60 cents a day to a starving kid in Africa and a starving kid in China. And China was this very third world country that was overpopulated with not enough resources. This is the 80s. And I remember those commercials. And that China doesn't have that problem now. China cornered manufacturing, and China was able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, if you will. And everybody has a worth, everybody has a talent, everybody has a vision, everybody has something to offer. And if that person could get paid for said thing, the world would be a much fairer place. Instead of that person being harvested for said power, for said talent, and some rich person who doesn't have that talent owning all of your songs. Person who can't rap. No, that doesn't even sound fair to me. But and when you see
as Gen Z or millennials, you can't stay home and not work and do nothing and just get by.
the fuck? You can't rap, how did you get rich? I mean, the thing about it is that you see equity everywhere. You see people get rich from whatever they did. You see the person who came up with the Swiffer. The person, you get what's her face, Harry Potter girl, J.K. Rowling. She made a book. She got rich. You get Mark Zuckerberg, and he's one of the elites now, right? He made up a social network, and there's a movie about it. Now he started from his dorm room. You see all of these people receiving resources and paid compensation for their contribution, whatever they made. If you're Thomas Edison and you made the light bulb, you should be rich. You should be rich. Yeah. And if I'm a guy who made an electric car against the grain and against the big three hating on me and the oil companies and all of that, and I was able to make a viable thing, I should be rich. And so Elon Musk is rich, and we know why he's rich. We see okay, that makes sense. He made that whole thing up and he made it work. So it makes sense why he's rich. If I can rap my ass off and I can impress the world with my talent or whatever, and let's just say not even rap, but let's just say I'm Michael Jackson or somebody like that type of talented, or even a James Brown, I could captivate the world with just my voice. So now I should be rich off of that. You know what I mean? If I'm a household name, if everybody knows who you're talking about, I should be rich. And it seems like when artists, and specifically artists of color, step into that ownership arena, we get pushed out some kind of way somehow. And we saw that Michael Jackson owned most of Sony, and he bought the Beatles catalog, and he owned Rihanna's music and Beyonce and all of that. And his catalog, he was such a shrewd businessman that he seemingly met his untimely demise. And so there's very questionable circumstances that surround MJ's death, because he was able to take his talent and get powerful with it. And unlike a lot of the processed music that we're getting today, he was a one of a kind. A lot of rappers can be replaced in this kind of current climate. But a person who's got a unique product and a very unique art can't really be bossed around about how to apply that art. You know what I mean? They might know their worth. Some of them might not, you know what I mean? But all I'm saying is, you get a person like Wayne who gets his career cut short by Birdman. Why didn't Drake miss a step? Because he was a shrewd businessman who got himself out of the deal. Drake could actually put Wayne on now. You know what I mean? And it's because Drake wasn't trying to just have a seat at the table and keep, being a part of some situation where he has a boss. He wanted to be the boss. And he's like, okay, my whole camp, my OVO sound and all that, this is a whole thing. And it's really very separate and different from Cash Money. And I need my own store now to sell this product. And it's fair that he got it. And the thing is that a lot of niggas should be able to do what Drake did and can't for some weird reason. And we know the boogeyman is the record executive and the big, 1%er rich folks. And we don't really know a lot of names, to name. We know Clive Davis and them, but it's a myriad of people. It's 100 people. There's people you walk by you in the street and you wouldn't know that they own, or that they're a big executive who gets paid $550,000 a year, managing some talent that they don't have. And I don't know. It's just like, okay, the executive club it shouldn't really necessarily be exclusive. The executive club should include the talent. And so anyway, I'm not here to preach. I was just saying we jumped off of that to say that we jumped off of that because we was on some hip hop.
We was on some hip hop shit. I think we came all the way from Kendrick to that. And it really stemmed from ownership to the machine
and Nipsey Hussle's biggest problem was his unwillingness to bend to play the game to the he was unwilling to waver in terms of being independent. He was unwilling to waver in terms of all the points that I was just saying. I'm sure he would have agreed with. He's like, hey, I'm the rapper, and this is my song. And even some of his bars was he said I'm a mogul in the making, autonomous black businesses, broken culture that we all lost niggas in. But he was saying that the culture is broken and that he is here to become some kind of shareholder in the culture, some kind of owner who has some say so. And he he's not here to fill those shoes. And so I just gotta say, a person like Kendrick Lamar is not a Nipsey Hussle, by any stretch of the imagination. And my other favorite LAMC, Dom Kennedy, is not a lyricist. He's not a wordsmith per se. He's a catchy tune, can make an album kind of guy. He's a Rick Ross without the bars. But he's got a lane. He's got a very laid back lane, just like Currency. and he's not a knock your socks off lyricist.
Yeah.
But he's a cohesion guy. His albums sound good. They all go good together, and I like all the songs.
Yeah.
Because he knows his lane, and you can't miss in that lane. But Kendrick can't give us that same cohesive project. Kendrick doesn't even have a lane, I would say. I mean, he's all over the place.
Yeah.
He's conscious, he's kind of hood, he's still a rapper, he's current with the times.
No beat making, but as far as like you're saying, just that kind of conscious edge, raw sound, just lyricism. You're like, okay, like if Kanye wasn't as emotional,
But
you're like, okay.
I get that comparison.
Yeah.
I get the vulnerability of both of those artists. But the only reason I grimace, the only problem I got is I can't compare people to Kanye West. I cannot compare people in this game to Kanye West. Kanye West is a lyricist, even though he had help. He had help from Consequence. He had help from GLC and his writing. His Sci-Hi to Prince. He had writing sessions with some of his favorite people. And Kanye West was a group effort in terms of being a full artist. But his vision was his own. He was the editor in terms of what was going to stick in the song and what wasn't, right? If you're the writer, if you're one of the writers on Seinfeld, you're not Jerry. You know what I mean? It's like Kanye West's complete product, if you talk about growth, like we talked about, and specifically with late registration, graduation, and maybe a sprinkle of songs after that, is genius level. Rick Ross took that lane and he took that late registration and cinematography. I feel like I'm in a movie kind of lane, and he was able to capture that like, and he was able to stretch that sound out into his career. But Kanye was off that, and he was on 808s and Heartbreak by that time, which is also a classic. But 808s and Heartbreak doesn't have any of that late registration, like full band sound. You know what I mean? And I mean, what was We Major, Touch the Sky? Like these songs were sonically reminiscent of like the Commodores, big band, Earth, Wind and Fire. Like these are feel good songs that include real instruments and they don't sound like boom bap. You know what I mean? He was in a lane that, from a production standpoint, he was challenging the greats. He was only able to be mentioned in the same breath as Dilla, Just Blaze, Pete Rock. You know what I mean? These kind of people. And when we start talking about depth and weirdness, Dilla and Madlib start taking a whole different cult. I can't compare Kanye to Dilla because Kanye wouldn't take the risks that Dilla took.
Yeah.
But in terms, and Madlib and Dilla are the same guy. They're the same person. And Madlib takes risks that only a person like Bootsy Collins or George Clinton would make. You know what I mean? They're like, their inspiration is like, fuck hip hop, funk, psychedelics, like movies. We sample in movies now and scores. You know what I mean? And sometimes we'll hit them with the oversimplified. You know what I mean? We'll take one note like that. All right, what's that doing? All right, and it's just like, how you just gonna have a one note the whole song? Kanye West wouldn't make those genius leaps because he's trying to make a well-accepted project, and so he's more like a Mozart. He's more like a Beethoven. He's like a orchestra director that's putting together something that's real luxurious sounding. I called it luxury rap when I heard it. It was high end. It was highbrow. You know what I mean? Like you could be a fan of music and not necessarily rap and get it.
Yeah.
Kanye West is great in his own lane.
Yeah.
But we'll put him one step below the greats that we think because those people are great for an untangible reason. They got an X factor. You know what I mean? And Ye has that, but it's just not as pronounced.
And a lot of these cats were like on the forefront, like you said, like creating a lot of the landscape for us.
Yeah.
No, but I think then to your point, to bring the full loop in, really it's interesting to where with these two artists, like you said, the Kanye, the Kendrick, two conscious cats, comparative then to like the Nipsey situation, really it seems like two cats really where it's more of a machine effort. You got a well-oiled machine really pushing Rockefeller, TDE, and let alone to make it in Rockefeller. He had to scrap, but again, like you said, it's like, bro, if you make it here, you're in Rockefeller. You're Kanye, but if not, you got Just Blaze, Young Guru. You know what I mean? You have a lot of the polished where it's like TDE feels like a fucking hip hop boot camp where you're like, it seems like all y'all do, like old school Goody Mob or some shit, like all y'all do is get in the dungeon and write raps all day. You know what I mean? It seems like that shit. Where it's like, it's a clinic over there, but like I say, you got all the resources to have this clinic. You know what I mean? Whereas Nip is probably on his own, doing it from his own grind. But it's like, Kendrick, I'm sure you got the production. I'm sure Top Dog has some kind of production team for you where you're like, oh yeah, we good. Don't worry about this here. That, you know what I mean? Like it's a well-oiled machine where it's like, bro, all you got to do is be Kendrick. Roll like you said, form the Seinfeld show for you. Just deliver, be charismatic. And again, he's got talent. Like you said, it's like, bro, I'm giving you a fucking Ferrari. Just don't fuck it up.
It does, you know what? And I don't know if you're saying that's a good thing.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, like, just looking at it. I'm not gonna say good or bad. Sure. But like you said, I just think that is. But I guess in our what we're saying is, I guess that is why Kendrick is where he is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess to our point to where I'm not gonna, like you said, not saying he's not great, but it just feels like he was given a lot of things early. I mean, I don't know. He came up in an interesting class. I mean, you got, if anything, I feel like the one that's scrapping the most is J. Cole. Like, he didn't have that TDE machine. Not that he needed it. Then you got Drake. Young Money is a funny situation. But then you got Kendrick popping up to where you're like, huh. It feels like the West, us being us, we just wanted to crown something to where you're like, all right, the game is kind of out of the picture. We're like, people are a little too short of done. We need something new. So it's like you said, we need that big thing to where Nip was just also to your point where he was working that underground machine, that underground circuit where it's like, you're not gonna get that same.
Okay, one, to your point about the well-oiled machine, it kind of feels like Kendrick is the star of a very popular show.
Yeah.
But he's not the creator of that show.
Yeah.
And and specifically with Kanye West, he felt like the creator of the sound, the show, the channel that you were on. And like Rick Ross, it feels like that channel is his.
Yeah.
You know, that lane that he commandeered, it feels like, oh, this sounds like a Rick Ross song. Oh, this sounds like, oh yeah, like this has got all the cellos in it, and you know what I mean? Oh wow. It feels like Kendrick doesn't curate his own projects, and he doesn't feel like he has, and maybe I'm wrong because I don't really know, we don't know him as a person that well. And he's so elusive and underground with his, hermit kind of ways that I understand that kind of person, that Lupe kind of person, that Elzhi kind of person. I understand that, that kind of artist, but I just don't see that artist being pushed as some kind of next biggest thing. You know what I mean? Because those people usually play really good support. Like they're a Scottie Pippen kind of character. That, a person like Fat Cat is on so many Dilla classics. Frank and Bang. People like Guilty Simpson. And over to the rock, people like Beanie and Freeway. Yeah, like, I mean, if we're talking classics, G-Dep. These people were never like, oh, this is the new Biggie. Like that never happened. They all had their own cool thing about them, but they weren't like Kendrick. He doesn't have the persona that it takes to be the king of LA. And no matter how good he is at rapping, he hasn't even had an album that I would say changed the landscape and made something new in vogue. Like, like Prince has a sound. You know what I mean? And the only one who could do the Prince sound, and arguably better than Prince, was Morris Day. And Morris Day in the time had Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis in the group. And because Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were able to hone those skills so funkily, they were able to market themselves as a production duo for Control and Rhythm Nation. And so, it almost feels like some people can get that assist role that they can play the hell out of that role. You know what I mean? You can be the Shaq to Kobe. You could be the, you know what I mean? You could be the Pippen to the Jordan, and you don't get Jordan without Pippen. You can be that that person, a person whose career was completely based off of being the number 2 was Mace. Mace was able to be the lob guy for Puff, and he was able to be a hit machine after Biggie was gone. And the problem is Mace was never going to be the king of New York. After Biggie died, Jay basically ran with that title, and he wasn't even arguably. He was arguably one of the best, but he wasn't clearly the best. He just he had the persona, he had the rock, he had the team. It felt like a movement because you need that. You Wu-Tang, Dipset, Rough Riders, whatever it is, you need a full-on movement. And matter of fact, speaking of Rough Riders, DMX threatened his position real like early on in '98 because DMX was the East Coast Tupac. We needed a Tupac. We needed that emo thug who we believed him, and he might be crying, but he'll kill your ass. And we needed that vulnerability. We needed that rawness. We needed those anthems. And Rough Rider DMX was a original and very witty southpaw type of MC, like Mystical. But he didn't have the formula to be a longevity having, MC who was in the game for a long time. They tried to get him with the ladies joint with How's It Going Down, and that went over real well. He hit you with the Deep Thought, it was falling, slipping, and it went real well. DMX was a multi-dimensional character, but he didn't have the king persona. You need kind of a boss kind of persona. He was like a live wire, and he was more like an unpredictable character that you couldn't put him in a throne. He might, like kill everybody. Like we didn't trust him. He was Buns, and he was playing himself in Belly, right? So those kind of wild card characters like DMX, Mystical, maybe Juvenile, those maybe Pimp C, some of those wild card characters like Corrupt Young Gotti. Corrupt Young Gotti was never gonna be the king of the West Coast. And wow, hit the nail on the head. Kendrick Lamar is corrupt. Corrupt Young Gotti is a dope ass MC who's able to get barsy and lyrical with the East Coast dudes, and he was more understandable than Razkaz. Razkaz was just wordplay, like Keith Murray. It didn't make sense. With mythological niggas is comical, we astronomical. It's like, okay, cool, that's fun wordplay, but your song isn't about anything. Razkaz took that Keith Murray type of thing and ran with it. And Corrupt was able to make that rapidy rap work on a West Coast gangster tip. And he was able to, he was a little brother to Snoop because him and Daz, and then he was kind of a co-star with Daz because Daz was a better MC than he was in terms of delivery. and Daz was making all beats.
And you know, excited that like look, making a song.
Yeah,
Just rap.
yeah. Daz was the direction guy, right? We're making a song. This is not a freestyle. And those kind of characters honed Corrupt, and Corrupt was able to stand on his own with Corruption, and Corrupt was able to make an album or two on his own, and we liked Corrupt, but Corrupt wasn't the brand new Tupac. Corrupt wasn't even Daz, because I prefer Daz because of his production skills. He wasn't, and Dr. Dre got the title by default. Dr. Dre was never the best rapper you ever heard, and Dr. Dre didn't have a commanding presence. He was more like the silent killer. He's in the same lane as Jay Prince or Big Meech, or not Big Meech because he was a real killer, but you know.
I don't know. And to your point though, sorry,
He took the Suge role.
Yeah,
And Suge was able to exit the game. Because Suge thought he had the CIA in his back pocket, and he thought he was untouchable. But Suge got disposed of by the man, and he took that role. He kind of seemed like the boss of it all behind the scenes. Mr. DR. And when it was 6-7 years after the Chronic, when 2001 came out, and the opening track, the lead single was da 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 da. And then the star of that song was Snoop Dogg, and the real underboss, the real star of that song was Nate Dogg, because we had to hold up, hey, and all of that was supposed to be Dre behind the boards. Well, we know that Dre has a camp of producers, and Hitman was in it, Daz Dillinger was in it, Jelly Roll was in it. Yeah, there's a lot of people who ghost produced for Dr. Dre. So we'll say Dr. Dre made those beats, but Dr. Dre didn't command those songs. Those were dog pound songs essentially, and Dr. Dre never earned that title. Dr. Dre was the production man at Death Row, which ran the West Coast. And he was the production man behind the other live wire who couldn't really be contained, Tupac. Tupac wasn't really the king of the West Coast, and he didn't really want to be. He wanted to be the Bobby Seale of the West Coast. He wanted to be some weird thug revolutionary. Like, he wanted to be this undefinable character that you would talk about in the Eldridge Cleaver kind of way, in the you know what I mean? Like he was a Gil Scott Heron kind of rapper. He was a everyman. He wasn't, and that's why people loved him so much. He was relatable. He was a everyman kind of guy, and you didn't look at him as, oh, that's the boss. Can't talk to him. Nobody better even look up. You know, he had a menacing presence sometimes on songs, but he didn't seem like Nino Brown. He really didn't. And so the problem when you start talking about King of the West Coast, and specifically for Kendrick or anybody else, there isn't one. There really hasn't been one. And the West Coast had to be a concerted effort of a hella artists in order to compete with the Mecca. It was like we had to say the West Coast was the second in line after New York, and the South came after that, right? And then now we got the Midwest and Chicago and drill and all this devolution of rap that turns into drill music, and it's just completely unrecognizable almost. It's like, this was my car? Who hit it? Who broke all the windows? Like, who totaled my shit? Because this isn't the hip hop I know. It feels like a neurotoxin. It feels very negative, and there's no lane for all the different stuff that we're talking about. Anyway, doesn't even seem like there's a lane for a good producer to come into the game either, because they would have to follow the drill sound, and we'd never know that there was a genius, you know? Anyway, All I'm saying is, if we have the the mecca of hip hop being New York, and New York, it didn't even have a king per se, because the real battle was between Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, right? But LL Cool J was making noise at the same time. And some people would argue that he was better than everyone at that time. And LL Cool J brought in the modern style of rap and killed Kool Moe Dee's career, right? So if we're talking, he would have claimed the throne if Kool Moe Dee was the king of something, but he wasn't. You know what I mean? So now you got Ladies Love Cool J doing all the Backseat of My Jeep, Lounging, all of these classic songs that are really for ladies, and they're really club songs, and they're very danceable. And he's not the aggravating, bloodthirsty MC who's very aggressive and actually possessive with the mic and who can touch it. You know what I mean? Like don't challenge me on this thing. This is my mic. That's Rakim. You know what I mean? And Kane was in that half ladies lane too. So he phased out because Cool J was doing it better than that. So Rakim had a leg to stand on because he was the most lyrically prowess, right? The new Rakim came in '94. Who was that? Nas. They said, oh, Nas is the new Rakim. He can tell a story. He has the voice, the mystique. He's got the take serious, don't smile kind of attitude. And okay, but Nas was very Kendricky at the time. He seemed like he was a character in the New York crime story, maybe even the narrator, but not the star king. I'm gonna kill you. I'm taking a, you know what I mean? Like when DMX dropped, it seemed like, can we go outside? Yeah. Can we go outside? If you're in New York, it seemed like when the what was it? The Rough Riders anthem came out. That video specifically, I thought, oh, okay, they took over New York. Yeah, it's over. Yeah. You know what I mean? Unless somebody with enough guns and motorcycles and street prowess come around. Dipset was deep, but they didn't have that same. They inherited the game because Rough Riders fell apart. You know what I mean? But they didn't have that. Oh, we're 1,000 deep, and there's nothing you can do about this. Wu-Tang did, because Wu-Tang in the fuck with video, there was like 100 people in the video, and you didn't really know who was in the group and who wasn't. It felt like a syndicate.
Viewpoint, to jump back to the former, you'll see Rough Rider patches today where cats are really like, I'm a Rough Rider. You know what I mean? Like that culture really embodied with yeah. And that's what I'm saying.
Now there's Rough Rider chapters all around.
So then
they're like the Hells Angels.
And you're like, other camps did not have this. They're like, oh,
move the cultural needle. There was no new Hells Angels before, any time after the Hells Angels, which is some 1950s shit. So you're telling me DMX made a new Hells Angels? That's crazy. You know what I mean? And anyway, all I'm saying is, if Nas had, and this is what Jay-Z capitalized, especially with the takeover. Nas didn't have a real Don aura, and he admitted that he was kind of trying to jump into those shoes with It Was Written. Biggie had the Don era. Biggie was the king of New York, and it was pretty much obvious. Not only did he have the lyrical prowess and the love for the art, the actual skill set, and the chip on his shoulder. He wanted to prove himself. So he had the classic, not only did he have classic songs, but he had classic freestyles. He was bodying people left and right. He was featuring. You know what I mean? He just wanted to, he was showing people, I can do the Bone Thugs. Let's do a song with Bone. Oh, you know what? Let's get on a song with the Brat of all people. Let's make whatever. Let's do it. And he had songs with Total. He had all that Mace lane. He eclipsed that Mace lane. He was Mace too, but he wasn't Mace. He was a Don who happened to have that Mace. You know what I mean? He was Big Daddy Kane. He was Big Daddy Kane and Rakim. He was both. And he had, not only did he have the personality, the charisma, the flow, and the believability. You know what I mean? He had the X factor or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was also and the person you root for in the movie.
Yeah.
He had that anti-hero vibe behind him because he didn't have the LL Cool J looks.
Yeah.
He didn't have the LL Cool J looks, and so people felt like I'd rather ride with this dude because he's flawed like me. He's fat and black and ugly as ever. However, yeah, you know, and it became Biggie being a fat black dude became his Thanos vibe. He became this guy who he didn't have to compete with you in the same arenas that y'all niggas is competing in. Y'all competing on looks? Nah, that's not how we getting down here. There's a new boss in town, and shout out to Rick Ross. Rick Ross took some of that aura and tried to make it, and he even said resurrect the Big Papa in the physical reincarnated Willis getting revenue. Rick Ross is as close as we're gonna get in terms of that, and he still has that Thanos kind of X factor because he's not supposed to win. He's a big fat black dude, and he's not handsome in the traditional kind of way, and so we have all these people who are marketed to us like Nelly was basically LL Cool J, and other MCs get by on purely looks like Bow Wow. He was a cute kid, and so they put him on. You know what I mean? Like there's people who are still getting by on more looks than talent, and they've got the it factor, but they don't really have the song that you need them to make. And part of music is very visual and very aura related, but the biggest meat of it, 80% of it, is your sound, your skills, your you know what I mean. And so anyway, all I'm saying is there wasn't a king of New York until Biggie. He didn't take that crown from someone else. And it was natural. It was like there was no one sitting in this seat. New York was. We had the Native Tongues. We had Q-Tip and Tribe Called Quest doing songs with De La Soul and Leaders of the New School. And we had Moni Love and Queen Latifah and Heavy D all working together and Salt and Pepper, and everybody was, you know. Everybody was kind of like, there was enough room in my same argument, there was enough room for everyone. And hip hop had a lot of collaborative spirit to it. And there didn't, it was competitive in the LL Cool J, I'm bad, I'm the baddest MC you ever heard type of thing. But LL Cool J didn't necessarily have to end anyone's career in order to come out in that lane. Kumo D played himself. He jumped in front of a bullet and said, I'm better than you, and the rest was a wrap. Exactly, and Kumo D didn't have any jurisdiction over where rap was going or who could make a song, and no. And so the even Africa Bambaataa felt like a royalty kind of character, but he wasn't a real rapper. And it felt like Mansa Musa came and visited us from the Songhai Empire and showed us how they get down. It was like a show of talent, like in Zamunda, when they all do the dancing or whatever. But Africa Bambaataa didn't seem like and we all know now that he was a gang leader and he ran a lot of that 70s warrior style gang stuff in New York with who was it? I know the Zulu Nation became an actual thing, but Zulu Nation was a street gang too. Yeah, and I know that Bambaataa was Yeah, he was. Bambaataa was essentially Osiris in the Warriors movie. The Can You Dig It? That guy. That's him, right? But he didn't feel like rap was too new and it was too collaborative. Everyone had room to shine, and so he seemed like the leader of his group, kind of like Jay is the leader of rock. He didn't feel like the leader of hip hop, and so we wouldn't get a King of New York until Biggie, if you ask me. And the antithesis to Biggie was Tupac, but Tupac was being himself in Juice. He was killing his brother. He was being Kane. He was being Brutus. You know what I mean? He was being Judas. He was doing all the wrong things. And I was actually mad at Tupac as a teenager. I was like, what is he doing? Why is he going so hard at Biggie like that? Like, I just listened to a De La Soul Fushnikin song, and everybody's getting along. Why are you doing this? And Tupac killed some of hip hop's innocence. It went from wax to murders. And Tupac wasn't necessarily the king of LA. He was just the guy throwing rocks at the throne. Because if Biggie was the king of New York, and if New York is the mecca of hip hop, then Biggie's kind of the king of hip hop. And so the West Coast was like an offshoot. It was an offset. It was a place that we were making West Coast hip hop, and it was different than East Coast hip hop. There was a space for it. There was a lane for it. We liked it. I didn't particularly like NWA or any of that type of stuff, but I liked what came out of that, which would be G-Funk.
Yeah.
And G-Funk is like, wow, we made it. When Warren G and them got on, when I first heard Regulate, I couldn't believe it. And I didn't know that I Keep Forgetting was no, I keep forgetting. I knew the melody already, and I knew it was a song I had heard on the radio. And I might have been 10 years old, and that was Bobby Caldwell, right? Bobby Caldwell. I keep forgetting what I don't know anymore. That Bobby Caldwell. I didn't even know he was a white dude at the time, and all that Blue Eyed Soul stuff. That and What You Won't Do for Love, which was what's his name? Oh, Michael McDonald, yeah. And they were making music that was actually very white centered at first with Doobie Brothers, but Michael McDonald fell into the Blue Eyed Soul lane, started making funkier music after Bobby Caldwell hit, and there was the other guy. No, Hall & Oates weren't really fun. They were very original. They were kind of, but anyway, all I'm saying is, I was like, hey, have you heard that song? I thought it was a Luther Vandross song. All I heard was ding, 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 dun, 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 dun. I'm like, that sounds like, I think it's a Luther Vandross song. Anybody know that song where they're rapping over that Luther Vandross song? The Luther Vandross song? And I was way off. And I had finally found the song, and I was waiting to tape it on my, you know what I mean, when it came on the radio, and because you couldn't just YouTube it. But man, Nate Dogg, Warren G, Daz, Corrupt, and Snoop was really he's the purveyor of all of this. He's the person who made all of this shit possible. And Snoop Dogg is essentially Bootsy Collins. He's a really funky guy who's a really awesome, in Bootsy's case, he's a bass player, and he doesn't get as famous as George Clinton because he's helping George Clinton get that fame. And so Snoop Dogg makes Dr. Dre who he is, but Snoop Dogg doesn't get the credit. Like he's some kind of boss, or he had his own thing, or Funkadelic was his group. No, he was just in the group. And so Bootsy Collins is a legend by itself. but he was such an assist man his whole career that he doesn't get that standalone respect that he deserves. And Snoop Dogg has played that same role in hip hop. He assisted Dre in becoming Dre. He helped uh, P and No Limit quite a bit because he was running away from the drama. And then he came back and reclaimed the West Coast with Cali is Active and all that stuff with Daz Dillinger and the East Siders and Butch Cassidy, Goldie Loc, Trey D, yeah, Battle Cat. These people, these songs were classics, and they couldn't have come from New York. They just couldn't have come from, you know what I mean, like, and the even some of the negative themes that are in the songs don't take away from the classic funk that they are literally derived from. And it's just like it's like when Beyonce remade Before I Let You Go. Oh, that's one of the few remakes that's like, wow, not only is it just as good as the original, but it's so different from the original. I gotta hear it. I can't substitute the original for this because Frankie Beverly and Maze doesn't do the turn around down and drop. You know what I mean? It's like it's a completely different thing now, and very few artists are able to take something and make it their own like that. And all of the people who were involved in whatever we call G-Funk did that successfully. They made funk music. They revived funk music with a real West Coast G appeal to it. But Snoop Dogg was such a good collaborator and he was such a team player with whoever. He was so likable, and so he got along with everybody. He was cool with Biggie and Tupac. He was cool with Suge and Nas. He was cool with Suge. He was cool with Master P, and he was cool with people who were actually beefing with each other. And Snoop Dogg seems like the kind of guy who will walk in the room like, "Come on, guys, why are we doing this?" And Snoop Dogg was able to play that glue role to the West Coast, and he was such an integral part of collaborating with everybody that he never could be some controversial. What do they call that? What do they call it when something is 50-50? When a topic is divisive, like people, you know what I'm talking about? What is that word? That kind of works, but I mean like when it's got to be a topic that people are really on the fence about, or really on one side or the other. You know what I mean? Like that's the word I'm looking for. That's the word I'm looking for. Polarizing. He doesn't have a polarizing enough character to say, "I'm the boss of the West Coast and fuck y'all, New York," or who can and can't participate in this West Coast banging club that Death Row. Death Row was this MOB, and if you ain't with it, you are. Tupac played an enforcer role of this. This is us, and it's us against the enemies, and we riding on fools, and that Tupac Snoop Dogg doesn't have that riding on fools aggression. That's why DMX filled Tupac's shoes well, because he had that this is the clique and you're not in it kind of mentality, and he felt like he was running a tight ship in terms of Rough Rider. I think that Snoop Dogg does not have a polarizing enough character to be a boss of something, because you have to have enemies to have an empire. You have to go to war to be a king, and that's why the takeover was necessary in Jay's mind. You have to go to war to be a king, and you got to fight for the throne. And so I'm going to take over, and I'm going to talk about whoever I respect as viable competition, so that it's clear. And if anybody wants to do something about it, it's The Rock. And that it felt like a real takeover. I mean, I know Ether crushed his buildings a little bit, you know, and I argued it was a better song, a better diss, because Takeover is clearly a better song. And Kanye West made sure that it was, with the sample and everything. It just the production quality is so much higher than Ether. And I had to check myself, because we had that Ether versus Takeover conversation way early on, and I was like, oh, Ether, because Ether was such this David versus Goliath moment where Nas was able to come back from what seemed like ruins, right? And hurled that little rock at Goliath, and Goliath fell, and it was just like, wow. And it almost seemed like he had killed a giant, but he won a battle in a game that's got much more longevity in it than the moment. And so it's kind of like winning one round of a fight. In hindsight, Nas knocked out Jay-Z, but he didn't kill Jay-Z. And so the giant got back up and kept trucking on his trajectory of what he was going to do. And continued on as the king of New York, essentially, with a scar. You know what I mean? It's like Michael K. Williams, that scar on your face. It's like, yeah, I've been through some shit, but I run this. You know what I mean? And so Nas was the scar on Jay's face. Yeah.
But you got a machine. It's not solo.
It's not all him. He's not driving the car.
Two, you're also in a time and place. I was say it's not competitive. I feel bad. That's not the word.
The competition isn't heavy.
It's not the same. Like, it's not what that was. Like, you guys aren't fighting for King. Nobody's.
Do you remember the conversation we had about Nori? Because Nori had said in '98, I was the hottest in the game. Nobody was hotter than me except Jay. And people were like, whoa, Nori, because we know Noriega as such a team player. He was never the boss of anything or the king of anything. Him and Capone seemed like a Mobb Deep duo, and they didn't necessarily seem like CNN was a big crew of people. It seemed like it was him and his homies, a few cats. Yeah, and they didn't have that Wu-Tang, oh shit, can I go outside kind of aura, Rough Riders kind of aura. And so Noriega doesn't get the respect that he deserves, because Noriega he was never the guy. You know what I mean? But in terms of quality, from the first time we heard him, he's been on point. And in terms of that sustainability, that currency factor, he's got that, because he can rap like the way he raps forever. Yeah, right. And so, and when then Noriega actually reinvents himself. Melvin Flint the Hustler, and he gets this like Neptunes-y kind of sound. And some of the beats are real Neptunes beats, and some of them are like knockoff beats that he liked. I remember that song that started there. I'm just a hustler. Don't know what the hustlers do. I'm just a hustler. Man, that was not Capone and Noriega sound. That was new. That was brand new. And Noriega reinvented himself. And once we got it's like a gun trilogy, gas strategy. They don't. Yeah, we had NRE. The niggas on around here. That was a different guy than the Mobb Deep sounded. Capone and Noriega duo. And so Nori was a different guy now, and he had a real big song. That NORE was basically essentially kind of like G-Dep's Let's Get It, right? It was like a Freeway, What We Do, or you know what I mean? Like those guys who they weren't real big stars, but they had a real big song. PD Crack, flip sides. You know what I'm saying? But PD is a varsity, right? But he also doesn't have a lot of direction. But PD Crack, that was his lightning in a bottle. Clap for me, mommy. Oh, that was it was marketable. It was a single. You could hear it, you know what I mean? And they made it a single. And PD can do that all day, but he can't necessarily do that. All his songs aren't single worthy like that. And so and he's kind of one dimensional like OJ Deuce. He's got a lot of ad libs and you know what I mean. Yeah. And I love it. He's fun. But when you think about it, right? And the thing is, for me, it seems like I'm trying to get back on track. But I'm comparing him to Nori, and Nori was a guy who we didn't see as necessarily a movement or a boss or anything or some takeover or whatever. He was able to survive and eat in his lane. And when NORE came out and when Melvin Flint the Hustler came out, it was, and specifically with Oh No, was it Homeboy? I came to party, right? Yeah. That was Pharrell. That was Neptune's, and even Super Thug. What? That's
where we have to realize.
It was because he had the foresight and the smarts to jump on that Neptune's wave, and he let the Neptunes give him some beats, and he had some of the hottest singles that you could ever hear in 98, 99. And so that translates directly to sales, and his argument stands tall. People are like, oh man, there's so many other people that you respect more than Nori. And you think there's a huge gap between Noriega and Jay-Z. But at that time, not so much. And so yeah, Noriega was, he was one of the hottest cats out. And the reason I'm only bringing him up is because we're talking about Kendrick and his level of competition that's around him. Noriega was able, we have to respect Noriega because he was able to survive in such a competitive time. If you made noise in the 90s, you were an elite MC because everyone was a good MC. And the only people who got lucky were like Too Short and Eazy-E and people like that. There was always some Memphis Bleak in your crew who could kind of rap, you know what I mean, but didn't really have it. You know what I mean, there was always some Silk the Shocker in your clique. You know what I mean? And when you blew, he blew. And when you blew up, we got I-30 on the Move Bitch Get Out the Way song, I-20 or whatever that guy's name is. You know what I mean? I-20 isn't, he didn't have the it. Ludacris did. And so he got to be able, it's like being one of the East Side Boys. No, Lil Jon had it. It's like being one of the Pips. You're a Pip, bruh. You are not Gladys Knight. And when Gladys Knight dropped Love Overboard, we didn't need the Pips anymore. Anyway, not the point. The point, you're a replaceable part of this cog. Just like Earth, Wind, and Fire had to replace people in their band, and they didn't necessarily have to break up the way normal groups did, because if we have a new drummer now, and forget Homie who was acting wild, you know what I mean? Like that's and some people even tried it with people who weren't replaceable, like the Temptations had to try to come with hella iterations of themselves, and they would try to replace people who they couldn't replace, but when it comes to a band, it's much easier to do. All I'm saying is, if we're thinking about, we got to think about the level of competition that you're in. We got to think about how hot is the game right now. How many classics are being dropped right now? Like you think about the year 2003. The year 2003, Black on Both Sides dropped. The year 2003, Mama's Gun dropped. The year 2003,
I think I just want to sing dropped, or it was no, it was the second one. It was the second one. What was the just listen dropped? The year 2003, Pharaoh Monch Internal Affairs came out. The year 2003, I want to say Cardinal Official came out with the Bacardi Slang joint. It was actually his second album. Um, man, Firestarter. And Firestarter was front to back bangers. In the year 2003, Black Star came out with their second album, right? No, I'm tripping. Definition came out. The Talib in High Tech. Black Star. Oh no. Reflection Eternal. And Reflection Eternal was all heat. The year 2003, I think the Grind Date came out. Classic Daylight album. The year 2003 was nothing but heat. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even mentioning the people like Daz and the East Siders and people were dropping in 2003. You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is, if you were making noise at that time, you had heavy competition, and you had to fight off a bazillion people for that throne. And I don't think that Kendrick has that competition right now. Yeah, and you know what? And this is the problem for both of these guys, Drake and King. This is the problem for both. For Nas and Jay had so much in common that we take for granted. They were both from New York. They were both rappers and not singers. They were both kind of grimier crime drug dealer rappers. Even though Nas was more of the narrator, and Jay used that to his advantage, to scribble it in your notepad, created you ain't lived that life. You've seen it from your folks' pad. Scribble it in your notepad and created your life. It was just like, whoa, ouch. That hurts because we already knew he was the narrator. And it just shit on his character of like, I'm really out here, bro. I'm in the streets. I seen it. I did it. And you watch from way up there. And that's a hell of a leg to stand on. That's a hell of a leg to stand on. Yeah, that's a hell of a leg to stand on. Anyway, but Kendrick and Nas have a lot in common too, in terms of being this narrator perspective and not the active kind of guy who's living the life that he's rapping about. And it's more observational.
Yeah,
like this is how
it's outside approach me like, oh shit, I saw some shit go down nearby me. But like it moves on. Like,
it was that's the whole Man Down song, right? You know what I'm saying? Take you on a trip down memory lane. This is not a rap about how I'm moving crack or move cocaine. Right? Like he's saying he's seen some crazy shit. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, you seen some crazy shit next, remember that guy? Remember that guy? Oh my goodness. I seen all the people say that. Oh my goodness. Who's that guy? Ooh, we gotta look that up, man. That was a banger. And can we say that should have been a Kendrick Lamar song? It was Boogie. The guy's name is Boogie.
Thank you. Hey,
that particular song, and let's be real. Let's keep it real. Album or something like that. That particular song, Boogie. Oh my goodness, that song would have been the best song Kendrick made had he made that song. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that's how I feel about that's how I feel about certain other artists who have that one. You'd be like when when French did the song with Ray Summer, Unforgettable.
Yeah.
I know Drake wishes he was like, this should be my song. This should be my song. You know what I mean? You think so? I mean, he came with that. He came with that same vocal inflection. Yeah, yeah. Because he wanted to be taken seriously. So he rap bullshit. And yeah, we were only one generation with the Curse Blow, and that bro, it was still alive. Yeah, yeah. Like you know, and that was a community word.
Yeah, man. Man, but here, now take us home, Steve. Wrap it up.
We're gonna take this on, man. All I'm saying is this.
Yeah,
And there really is no end. There's really is no end, and that's why this has to be a multi-episode cast.
Yeah.
But because the conversation never ends. But just to wrap it up, I'm just saying that I'm not hating on Kendrick Lamar as a lyricist or as a creative or as an artist, but he has a lot more in common with Andre 3000 than you know, than Tupac or Snoop. You know what I mean? Like he's this eccentric, hard to capture, deep thinker who will hit you with some real fun, interesting bars. Andre 3000 had to essentially run away from rap because he couldn't put himself in that box no more. And so he hit you with the Love Below, which was essentially R&B and rap put together in a different way than Drake, but like in a funkier, more Erykah Badu-ish kind of way. But he was graduating from hip hop at that time. You could hear it, and so he come back and hit you with a fire guest verse here and there. But Andre 3000 is too eccentric to really be a rapper.
Yeah.
And for good mention, that's why Mos Def is not Jay-Z. Mos Def couldn't be contained and play the game forever. And Mos Def is my Jay-Z. Mos Def is the king of New York to me. He's the best New York MC that embodies New York hip hop to me. If we're talking about the respect level that Jay-Z has, and maybe even the hype that the Jay Electronica has, cult-ish, Mos Def deserves all of those things. And it's weird for me to watch somebody else sit in Mos Def's seat. Like this guy's the king. You know what I mean? Yeah, because hip hop is so creative. It took a formulaic guy like Jay to be, and Biggie was kind of naturally the king, but he could have only reigned for so long, right? And so the next person who would give you that feeling, that feels like the beginning of hip hop, feels like that Curtis Blow, that it came with some street tales and some narration on the Nas tip, but it also came with a lot of like deep introspection, like what it is to be a human, you know. Mos Def definitely did that, but all I'm saying is Kendrick is. I'm not hating on Kendrick. I just don't think Kendrick doesn't have. He has that Andre 3000 butterflies in a jar kind of mind. And he's not gonna be the Suge Knight of this thing. And you don't have to be some real mean, room with an iron fist Suge Knight kind of guy, but you have to command a large presence. And specifically, you have to have other artists in your region defer to you. They have to kind of bow down. You know what I mean? And in the East Coast, people talk about rappers rap about Jay like. Like, you know what I mean? Like even Drake, as large as Drake is, the only person who's more famous than Drake is Michael Jackson. And as large as Drake is, he has to refer to Hov as Big Bro. And even when even when he lightweight threw a weird snub at him, he said, "I ain't listening to the whole on that song when he told me pay it no mind. I'd rather go up. I get more satisfaction than look going at your head and seeing all you die. And I seen a lot of you die. That was free smoke, and he was going ham on niggas. But he said, but he was saying, I'm just that crazy. I'm not listening to the forefathers. I'm not listening to niggas who I actually should be listening to. I'm on my own. I'm blazing my own trail. I'm not hiking on the path anymore. Exactly. And so he has to, that wasn't even a Jay diss, but he has to kind of sweep Jay out the way in order to sit in the throne. You feel me? And Drake has way more bossability bars like that. He said, I'm fucking blowing up. Shaq posting up on niggas that I used to have posters of. Wow. Kendrick wishes he could say that and mean it. Kendrick could actually say that, but it wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't be true. And the problem for me, and for Kendrick fans and for Drake fans, is that these people are not directly comparable. Comparing Drake to regular rappers is like trying to compare Missy Elliott to regular rappers. Missy Elliott makes R&B songs too. Missy Elliott, it's like trying to compare CeeLo Green to regular rappers. It's like, no, CeeLo Green is Gnarls Barkley too. He's a different guy. He's not. You can't compare Drake to a rapper. Yeah. 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 He's a poet. He's kind of Gil Scott Heron with it. And he's woke, and I like it, but he's in a lane all by himself, and he doesn't have competition. So he can't win anything. Yeah.
Actually, whatever, he's still a guy. Where, like, it almost in that regard makes you one-dimensional to where, sorry, I love every freestyle verse, whatever Black Thought has, but even he almost gets a little one-dimensional where you're like, oh, it's the same, oh, it's the same cadence. You're a monster any day of the week, but you almost are so dark horse where, oh, nobody can fuck with you, where you're like, it almost gets one note. Where you're like, oh, okay.
You know what? And Black Thought, the weird thing I'll give him is his depth comes from the albums. Where, like Black Thought is able to, he's able to get off that rat-tat-tat-tat, and he's able to make a song. Yeah. And he's able to make a cohesive song about something. He's able to tell a story. You know what I mean? And the fact that, and the way Black Thought became an elite MC to me when he did a song with Big Pun, because that song was particularly like the Roots felt like Tribe Called Quest.
I think he did the song. I don't think he held his own on the song. But mind you, I think he showed up, but to your point, I think it's those moments that make you greater later where you're like, hey, I just did a song with Big Pun, right? It's like,
no, he didn't body Pun.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what I'm saying. Like, no, but folks, I know some folks that he held the song, right? Like, he was there.
And Pun, he was there. Speaking of Thanos, Pun was a Thanos character. He was an anti. His style came directly from Cool G Rap. And Cool G Rap was a dark horse in the 90s. Cool G Rap was a dark horse in the 90s. He was never able to hit like that, but he was a rapper's rapper. He was an MC's MC, and he was head and shoulders above a lot of niggas who were making millions of dollars. And and the only person who references him as a strong influence is Black Thought. But Cool G Rap gets reincarnated as this Latino Puerto Rican guy named Big Pun, and Big Pun was able to body anything you gave him. He even hit you with the slow jams like "Come Back to Me, Punisher," or whatever, because he was able to even use that like nonstop flow to even tell a little story with it and tell you how to Shorty messed with his mind or whatever. Big Pun was and he was so well, he was so good of an artist, he was able to take himself out of the rap. He didn't have to always be this impervious Don that couldn't be touched. He was vulnerable enough on the songs and things like that. But Big Pun, doing a song with Big Pun and being anywhere in the conversation, it makes you, it's like racing with a Tesla. And any gas powered car that can kind of hang with Tesla is a monster. You got to have a track hawk. You got to have a track. You got to have a damn Hellcat. You got to have a GT. You got to have the Ford GT. You got to have the McLaren P1. You got to have supercars and still get smoked by Tesla. And it's because of the battery technology, right? So all I'm saying is, it's like that. And so Black Thought is a track hawk. Black Thought is a monster. He's a Hellcat. He's an IROC Z. Hellcat. He's a 5.0. He's the best it gets. You know what I mean? In terms of gas powered cars. Yeah. And he's a supercar. And Pun, in his short time here, was almost unhuman. It didn't make sense. And yeah. And from a depth perspective, I think that okay, Black Thought has his stories, his why you want to give me the silent treatment and all those things, a 100% done deed. You know, and then he's got enough songs like that, right? And the Tipping Point had a lot of songs that were like New World Water from most of that. They were like, where are we going as a planet, as a people? Are we gonna make it? You know what I mean? The very social, you know, commentary type stuff. But Black Thought gives you a different gear when he's freestyling, and it's nonstop. He basically jumped into that Big Pun, into those Big Pun shoes. He grew into Pun, and so now he did a song with Pun. He's like, wow, this is crazy, and he's not gonna get smoked like that again. And he learned. And even though Pun is not with us, he would be able to hang with Pun much better now than he would have at that time. And he became Pun, and so. Yeah, on his freestyle it's got a lot of prowess in it. It's got a lot of shit talking and it's got a lot of worldly stuff, and you know what I mean, like, you know, highbrow stuff that I like, very luxurious. And he's not bragging about necessarily what brand he's wearing, but how he's always dapper, or not what car he's driving, but he said you can catch me stepping out the red carpet, stepping out of spaceship with a glass of Shiraz and 2 around the way chicks. It's like, whoa, this dude is talking about flyness without necessarily saying, I got that 2001 Bentley on dubs, loaded. It's like that song is gonna age, bro. You know what I mean? #1 stunner. You know what I mean? And so the bars become timeless when you start talking like that. And so Thought is he's a dark horse, but so is Jay Electronica. Jay Electronica, the stuff that he's actually hit us with without an album is that it could be compiled into an album, and that album is already a classic. So there's no reason for him to drop an official album for me to know that to believe in the product. Yeah, it's like, I mean, but when you think about those dark horse kind of characters, they always have an insane amount of talent that can't necessarily be packaged into a album after album. Yeah, like.
That's the one thing we'll say that she was have all of because they had to own all that. All right, like this shit over here. We know you like this down shit. Look, but we gotta help you make. They ultimately ASAP Yam still. Like, bro, look, we're gonna find you sound what you fit on, package you, we'll put it all together.
And West Coast, not G-Pro. And not that sort of backpack West Coast hip hop has always had that problem. From High Road to Hobo Junction to Freestyle Fellowship, to all of the people, yeah, all the people who tried to do that kind of hip hop, even the licks. All the people who try to do that kind of hip hop, the alcoholics were essentially the beat nuts. But the beat nuts had a better machine behind them because they were able to have they had a cohesive project. And the beats were outrageous and they lived up to their name. But my thing is this: if you got all of these Hobo Junction-esque collection of weird people who are very absol-ish, TDE-ish, Del the Funky Homo Sapien-esque, Opio, Tajay might have had some by himself. Right, Tajay by himself could have been, some rap version of Ralph Tresvant, but even if you're talking, Oakland, Zion. When we're talking,
shout out to Zumbi one time.
Talk about the Zumbi. Rest in peace.
I just saw a tribute at the Bamboo Baby Stola show. He did a wonderful tribute to Zion. Rest in power, brother. God.
Rest in power. Oh, we know. Hey,
dope Zumbi stories.
Next time, we got
a freestyle with. I'm not gonna share that with y'all right now. But I got a freestyle story with Zumbi, but we'll share that another time. But yeah, man.
And we start talking about these West Coast people who had this very eccentric backpacking style, but everybody we're naming essentially adds up to it culminates to an Andre 3000. They culminate into this eclectic person that can't really be put in a record deal and can't really just rap. They got other interests and hobbies and like the some of the most genius creatives can't do it over and over again. They're literally giving you it all that first go, you know what I mean? And it takes a different kind of person to be consistent at something. So yeah, you get all of these Hobo Junctions and high roads and whatever, and you culminate into this Kendrick character, and even on the East Coast perspective, we have Dead Prez, and Dead Prez is the same thing. They're glimmers of genius that you got to sift through to find, because their projects are so scatterbrained and they don't have enough direction to say this is our sound. And so a person like Kendrick is in the same breath as Dead Prez and Andre 3000 and all of these people who don't have consistency, and that's his Achilles heel. But we cannot keep comparing this dude to Drake because Drake is a better overall product. And it's like trying to compare Carl Kanai to the House of Gucci. It's a different thing. You know what I mean? It's like trying to compare some In-N-Out burger or fast food place that's bomb to a restaurant. And the restaurant is always going to win because of what they have, how it's packaged, how it's presented, and no matter how good Kendrick's slice of pizza is, Drake has like a Fleming's type of restaurant. Drake has a Scott Seafood. He's got a whole menu. We gotta get out of here, man. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these motherfucker on there is a beast. Even the judges are monsters.
Yeah.
But then they're like, yo, but then we got our guest celebrity, Wolfgang Puck, or that one motherfucker that always comes in and like shit, eclipses the whole shit. Like, I said earlier, you got to defer. We're like, yes, that's the Wolfgang. That's the guy. I got a household name, but this is the fucking guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is still like shit that high end, high fashion.
Yeah. And can I just grab? I'm only gonna do this tier thing one more time because New York is the mecca of hip hop. The king of New York is by default the king of hip hop in a sense. Yeah. And so we went from Biggie being the first and to Jay being the second, right? And if Jay is the second king of hip hop, there isn't a New Yorker that preceded him, that preceded him, or that there's no There's no New Yorker that took the J spot and is there now. Am I correct? There's no brand new Jay-Z. There's no brand new Jay-Z. But the brand new Jay-Z is great. And in terms of, it's hard to compare him to a regular rapper, but Jay-Z has had so many different lanes that he you know, the Excuse Me Miss is basically a Drake song. And it's only if Jay sang the hook, like for real, and didn't need for real, that would be the whole thing. But the point is, the new Jay-Z, if that exists, isn't from New York. He's from Toronto. He's not even from America. And as many faults or whatever he might have in terms of being a total package for the boom bap crowd and the hip hop purist crowd, he's definitely in the seat. And Kendrick plays this more dark horse character that Black Thought is way better rapper than Jay-Z, but he never was the king of anything, and he never took Jay's spot. And so Kendrick can get his Black Thought on all he wants, but he's never going to be the king of hip hop. And specifically because what the throne has never really landed in the West ever. There's never been a king of hip hop out here. Yeah. And there's always some nigga trying to vie for the crown in New York. And some people almost made it. People like DMX and people like 50 Cent. Almost, but never quite was, you know, the king of anything. Anyway, I'm sorry, Kendrick. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I hate to break you down like that.
Talk about it with us. We can talk hip hop, talk shop. And I think the beautiful thing is, mind you, we recognize greatness. Kendrick is a great artist. And remember, he doesn't get a basic barometer like the rest of you artists. He doesn't just get 1 through 10. His brother gets 1 through 100. He's on a whole other scale that we compare him to. Like you said, you heard the names we mentioned, the Drakes, the Jay-Z's, Raheem's, Cool G. I mean, he gets compared to great. So remember, we're listening from a real, true fan perspective. You know what I mean? So a real artist perspective. So if you're gonna talk art, we're gonna really weigh you down on it or weigh in on it with you. But yes, R&B is dead. Emil the real, most with the most. Akeem Raheem, the aerosol dream. See y'all next time. Peace.